Hey, very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sean.
This is Alex.
And you're listening to another Minisode of CoasterKings A through Z. Nearing the end of the season, actually. We are at letter W for Wings of Glory at the Hayu Brothers Movie World, short for HB World, and Suzhou, China, about 2 hours from Shanghai, inland. This theme park is, well, what it sounds like, a movie studio theme park. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about the actual coaster of today's interest, which is the B&M Wing Coaster. So it's not just some, Golden Horse.
Goofy knockoff.
Wow mouse. So now we're talking big, prominent coaster.
It's pretty unique.
And then the park itself a tiny bit as well, because I think to know Wings of Glory is needing to know HB World a little bit.
This park and this coaster cannot be separated from each other. To talk about one is to talk about the other, because it's all part of the experience.
Isn't that right?
Isn't that right?
Anyway, so Wings of Glory is actually a clone of a closed, never opened, standing but not operating coaster at Hot Go World. So Hot Go World is part of a larger resort from Hot Go Sea and Hot Go something else. Forest? Jungle?
Yeah, there's Hot
Go Hill?
I think it's just called Hot Go, and then there's Hot Go Sea and Hot Go Dream World.
Now, Hot Go Dream World is under construction, technically. Practically abandoned now because construction started in 2015, and along with a giant B&M hypercoaster,
like a mile-long, beautiful,
one of the coolest layouts I've ever seen. Helices, tunnels, splashdowns, just like not your typical B&M hypercoaster. All abandoned. The hotel's half finished. The park is non-existent, but the two coasters are completed.
Yeah,
which is a shame because these are two of the coolest B&M coasters that are not ever going to operate properly.
But
however,
so the interesting thing is that with HB World's Wing Coaster, they literally cloned a coaster that has never operated.
So they're still the only operating coaster with that layout. And it is quite a unique layout. Now, HB World is a theme park that does things a little bit differently when it comes to the classic theme park approach, because their focus is world building.
Yeah.
But they are the first theme park that we are aware of, the only theme park we've ever been to, and we've been to 800 theme parks collectively as a team, that has a world building that is to scale.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, everything is forced perspective, everything is smaller, and you got Galaxy's Edge, Wizarding World of Harry Potter, some of the most famous, biggest themed lands that are technically speaking all just forced perspective. Like, you stand away from it and everything is not quite as large. Now, HB World has about 4 major areas, and the focus areas are so massive because they are to scale. The biggest one, I forgot the exact name of it, but it is a classic...
Like the city, like Imperial China.
Yeah, like an Imperial Chinese city based on one of the biggest movies from the Hayu Brothers, which are a famous movie studio within China making Chinese classic movies. Especially starting back from the time when the Western media really wasn't a thing in China, so... they were one of the, state media almost.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so the Forbidden City or Temple kind of vibe, that's not the official name, I don't have it handy, it's on the CoasterKings.com, but that is literally like so massive. You walk into this giant palace, there's a little roller coaster hidden in there, it's actually pretty decent size, but like there's a giant 200-foot statue that's an exact replica of one of the Buddhas in the Suzhou area, if I'm not mistaken. So overall, really cool.
Yeah,
that's something you gotta know about that park.
That park is amazing, and it's just a stunning place to be walking around in because everything feels real and recreated, especially the Imperial Palace area. It feels like you're in an actual historical site and not a recreation. Like these things that they've done are like these recreations feel indistinguishable from their source material, which is what I think makes this really special.
Yeah, because you're able to walk around this palace, for example, and explore the whole thing. And it's just like a massive square. There's rides kind of peppered around the outside of the temple, and within the temple there's a dark ride, water ride. But honestly, if you didn't know what you were looking for, you would totally miss it. Yeah,
this park doesn't really have like a show building for the rides in this area. They just physically fit inside of the giant buildings. But anyway, really the only thing there that feels sort of typical is the wing coaster. Like,
totally.
They've got some quirky dark rides. They've got some really ornate flat rides.
And the Flat Ride collection is one of the most impressive I've seen in China, for sure.
And then the wing coaster is fairly straightforward. It has a pretty decent queue set up. It's in a more like a kind of in a modest, like it's like a turn of the century Shanghai kind of.
Yeah, kind of like a Shangri-La kind of area.
So it's about the like the golden era of flight is like the theme for the ride. It's got really cute train embellishments and a nice station.
Almost kind of gives you Da Vinci kind of vibes.
Yeah, or like even the Wright brothers. So somewhere in that like late 1800s, early 1900s sort of feel. And it's got a great layout. I think of the ride as kind of being like a remix of X-Flight. It kind of starts off, it's got a lot of X-Flight's maneuvers. It's got
kind of the same scale, but I will say it's probably the most compact wing coaster next to Flug der Dämonen at Heide Park, which we'll be doing a full-length episode on that in the next couple of weeks as well.
This ride does pack a lot into its, because it's got six inversions.
Yeah, so let's start with
it's a dive loop,
the layout.
First drop.
Yeah, so you have a 118 feet tall, 36 meter tall lift hill. That's the typical half loop, dive loop situation that a lot of wing coasters do. Then it goes straight into a vertical loop. Then it goes into a zero-G roll. Mm-hmm. Then it heads into an Immelman. The Immelman crosses over the zero-G roll in that kind of an opposite direction. It's almost like, if you look from the top, it's almost like a zigzag with a helix in it. Like, it's really cleverly laid out, the way they fit everything in. After that, like, you have this half zero-G, half barrel roll
thing
that turns into a helix, a really sharp downward helix, so like a downward
sharp,
drop.
Like a little 270 that then exits into a traditional, like a big corkscrew.
In the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. So it was like a continuous roll.
And then continues into a upward helix into the final brakes.
And the elements are really tight, but the roller coaster runs a 8-car train. So it's one of their tighter layouts with the longer trains.
And the pacing is good, but it definitely feels different front versus back rides.
Yeah, because we rode Flug der Dämonen recently, and that had, was it 6 cars or 5 cars per train? 6 cars per train. So it's quite short compared to the 8 cars on
Wings of Glory.
But Wings of Glory, the front row and the back rows, which you rode both, quite different experiences because you really got whipped around the back. Like, it's one of the more intense wing coasters in the back. Mm-hmm. And the front, you kind of get pushed through those elements. It's because the train's so long, you really have a really distinct front and back car kind of feel. Sometimes when the trains are shorter, it doesn't really matter where you sit. Like Thunderbird in Indiana. It sounded like, well, you sit on 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. It doesn't really matter because the elements are all really large and the train's very short.
Yeah, or like even Phoenix is another 6-car B&M wing coaster. And aside from getting like pulled through the first drop versus hanging through it, the front and back seats are pretty much the same experience.
Now, what's impressive for this small coaster, they were able to fit a vertical loop in. Because the vertical loop is really not that big, and we have pictures on the CoasterKings.com. Just look for HB World in the search bar. It's a 2019 report, but if you hear that, that's our cat running over the recording.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Bondo.
Appreciate that.
Anywho, is he going to scratch the pool?
No, not today. Not right now.
Satan.
Go downstairs or do something. Okay. Now we're up in the tree. Okay.
Sorry about that.
All right.
Look at those Wings of Glory flying up the cat tree.
Uh-huh.
Anywho, so what I was talking about was the vertical loop is it's kind of tight, and there's actually support from the lift hill going straight through it.
Major support beam that goes through it. Nice little head chopper movement.
It's kind of funny.
That whole first sequence is just like X-Flight, except they inserted a vertical loop in between the dive loop drop and the first like zero-G roll moment.
Yeah. Now, for a while, Kings Dominion was actually rumored to get a clone of this, except for missing the final helix and missing the vertical loops. So kind of like even worse quad version of it.
Lame.
Which might as well clone this one.
I mean, it's a great layout. And
it's so great, I kind of call it the new Batman of wing coasters. Yeah. Knowing that they've cloned it, this is the first one? It's probably the first clone wing coaster, isn't it?
I believe so, yeah. It's the only...
Despite the only one being operating.
Yeah, it's the only wing coaster that's been... The only B&M wing coaster that's... Well, the Happy Valley, the kind of really long out and back Happy Valley wing coaster has been cloned.
The Happy Valley Chongqing and Happy Valley Nanjing.
Yeah.
Both have that one. That's true. So I guess it's no longer the only one.
When we
wrote it was the only one.
Only coasters in China... only B&M wing coasters in China get cloned, apparently.
But yeah, given its compactness, its intensity... I would really love for this to be the new Batman clone of B&M wing coasters. I think almost any park would add one of these. It's just like a really solid attraction.
Even though we have like several B&Ms in the US, I'd be happy to see one.
Oh, totally. I mean, having 6 inversions and 2 helices, densely packed into this layout, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. I think like it does a lot more than rides like Dollywood's Wild Eagle do.
Yeah.
And perhaps even, I guess
I think it does more than X-Flight.
It does more on paper than X-Flight. X-Flight's a little more spread out. I think X-Flight's maybe about as interesting. But yeah, Wings of Glory definitely has potential, and I would love to see it come in the US. Or anywhere, really.
Yeah. Anywhere that could use a B&M, anywhere that would be a good candidate for a wing coaster would potentially be a good candidate for this particular wing coaster.
Exactly.
Especially if you've just got a flat plot of land, like a little box or something.
Yeah, it really doesn't have to be a lot.
Doesn't ask for much. I mean, the ride has
perfect square too.
No embellishments, like no keyholes, nothing. There's a lot of potential.
The whole ride is a keyhole, though, because you're constantly so close to out of track.
And there's potential there for a park to do more, but it's also not necessary.
Exactly.
If like Lost Island or somebody,
the one thing that they
threw
have
it in a field somewhere, it would be a hit.
The one thing I have on Wings of Glory is the final helix. You really dive so close to the ground. There's kind of like a little pit.
Yeah.
It's like a little what do you call that, swamp that you kind of fly over real quick. That's the only terraformed area.
That's true. They did have
and that was kind of weird because like I really thought my feet were like so close to the ground. It was kind of uncomfortable. I don't think I've been on a wing coaster where like the wing coaster you sit on the ground.
Take your foot off.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do recall that.
But yeah, overall great ride. I know it's in Minisode. It's not going to go on about it too long. We've already kind of reached our limit. But if you ever get a chance, look at some POVs. Roller Coaster Dream has an awesome POV of the wing coaster. While we have your attention, make sure you give us a 5-star rating on any of the streaming platforms you're listening on right now for CoasterKings Radio, and check out all the other full-length episodes and the minisodes. We have a YouTube channel now with lots of new vlogs, lots of content. Look at that. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the good stuff. See us online at CoasterKings.com. We'll see you on the next episode.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.